If you think Expedition 33 isn't an indie game because it's published by Kepler Interactive, I need you to understand something real quick. You aren't giving any kind of nuanced critique. You're just a fucking tourist. This entire "it's not indie because Kepler" take only exists because you recently entered the indie conversation and never bothered to learn how it actually works. Because if you had, you'd know that Kepler isn't some kind of AAA megacorp lurking in the shadows. Kepler Interactive is a collective of independent studios. The studios aren't owned by Kepler. They are Kepler. It's literally a shared structure where smaller teams pool resources for funding, marketing, and distribution without giving up ownership or creative control. That's not corporate control. That's literally just indie studios helping each other out. Somehow we've reached this point where tourists think that publisher is a dirty word. Newsflash, publishing support doesn't magically revoke independence. And if that were true, then congratulations, you just declared half of modern indie history invalid. Following this logic, anything that Devolver Digital publishes wouldn't be indie either. Hotline Miami, not indie. Inscription, not indie. Enter the Gungeon, apparently AAA now. And nobody actually believes that because that would be ridiculous. And this is where the tourist mindset really shows. To some people, an indie only counts if the game looks cheap, runs poorly, and feels like it was made out of spite. That's not a definition, that's a fetish. Indie games aren't the poverty Olympics. Indie didn't freeze in time during the Xbox Live Arcade era. Studios grew, tools improved, and engines got better. Plus, game development became more accessible. Just look at Unreal Engine and how Epic doesn't even ask for royalties until you start crossing a certain threshold of sales. When an indie studio reinvests its success into higher production values, that doesn't suddenly turn it into AAA. That just means they didn't stay miserable on purpose. And here's the part you tourists skip. Who owns the studio? Who controls the creative direction? And who has the final say? Expedition 33 wasn't built to appease shareholders. It wasn't filtered through executive committees, and it wasn't focus tested into safety. It was made by an independent studio, operating inside an indie collective outside of the AAA ownership structure. A lot of people treat indie like it's some kind of aesthetic, pixel art, minimal UI, and vibes. But indie isn't how a game looks, it's how it's owned and controlled. Indie is a business model. If your definition of indie is no publisher, no money, and no growth, then what you actually want isn't independent. You want indie studios to stay small, fragile, and invisible forever. And that's not respecting indie studios or what they produce. That's just being a tourist. Expedition 33 is an indie game. Kepler doesn't erase independence, it exists to protect it. Success doesn't revoke the label, and ambition doesn't make something corporate. Indie doesn't mean small, it means free.